In the media environment we're used to, production of media, whether it's books or television or whatever, has targeted individuals who have sort of long-term consumption and long-term reactions. And we're increasingly moving to a media environment where we're targeting groups who have short-term consumption and short-term reactions. Oh my gosh, look at this. And that is swinging the role of emotion into a much more central position in the media environment. What we're seeing now with Facebook streams, with Twitter, with the move towards instantaneous ability to pick up on a signal, modify it slightly, share it with my friends who pick up on what I'm adding to it, modify it slightly and share it with their friends, in a matter of minutes, is that emotionally engaging messages are now rippling around the world at nearly the speed of light. The media landscape is now going to balance increasingly towards the sharing of the things that create social capital among people. Whether or not that's good or bad, as you say, it's a value judgment and it's early days. What it does suggest to me, though, is that we need at some point to think about what the countervailing mechanism is to dampen panics, so that we maintain, where we need it, a sort of a heightened level of, oh, this is going on, you should know, but not what's kind of happened with swine flu over the last couple of days, which is going from nothing to this kind of collective global, People are already making fun of that on Twitter. It may be that society itself starts putting those dampers on, but figuring out essentially how to balance the long form and reflective with the short form and emotional, that's not a 6-month challenge. That's really a big shift in the media landscape, and there's going to be lots and lots of experimental responses to that. It's going to take a while before we get it right. We've been used to the idea that the fuller the experience, the print to radio to television to movies, the more it gets kind of emotionally immersive, the more emotionally immersed you get in the moment. But Twitter, which went the opposite way, text only, 140 characters, right, or the Facebook feed, right, just a handful of little status updates. Those are actually things where, because they're coming from our friends, the emotion is already pre-existing in the relationship, and it takes very little to trigger it in a channel, right? And so what's happening is the media is now not operating this parallel broadcast universe to regular human society. It's increasingly using the channels of human society to flow, which means that emotional channels along which emotion already flows are increasingly the way that these new, the new stories, the swine flus and Amazon fails of the world start to break. The question of sort of how we get information and how we attach authority to it is a really complicated one now. If you only gossiped with your friends and your entire worldview came from that, which is to say roughly the state of the world prior to 1500, you would have as narrow a worldview as you would expect in a situation like that. But one of the surprising things that's happening in these friends of friends networks is that, like bees carrying pollen, when we're talking to each other, we're also saying, oh my God, you got to read this. Oh, I just saw that thing. And so we're now not just gossiping. Gossip has become a media channel for external links. The risk of that, however, is back to the emotional risk, which is if something comes from my friend, I'm inclined to trust it, not even necessarily because I trust my friend, or rather not even necessarily because because I think my friend has the kind of judgment that means that they've vetted it, but rather because I have just positive emotional feelings. So if they say, oh my goodness, look at this, this corporation is mulching their yard with ground up baby kittens, right? Oh, I'm outraged. I hate people who grind up baby kittens. And I'm forwarding this thing along. No one has gone and checked, right, whether the mulching is happening. I think a lot of what we're going to move towards is the page rankicization of everything, right? Google, when they looked at the search problem, said Yahoo is broken because they're trying to infer all the value from the page itself. They're not looking at who's linking to it and who's doing the linking of the people doing the linking and so forth. It's the same problem with spam. It's the same problem with these other kinds of things, which is I don't want anybody in the world to be able to contact me, but I do want people I don't know to be able to contact me. And so being able to find metrics through the social network that says, you've never met this person and you'll probably be happy to get their mail. Like 10 people you know 100 people that person knows. Like that's the person I want to hear from. And that kind of use of the social graph as a way to let certain kinds of messages in, certain kinds of messages out, and possibly later down the road flag certain kinds of messages as This has been forwarded at such a rapid rate that it may be that no one has done any fact checking. Right? You could almost on Twitter write a metric that tied velocity to an inverse likelihood that anybody had done any deep looking, and just flag those things and have somebody say, I'm going to grab these top 10 hashtags and I'm just going to start doing the research, and set up your own kind of. I mean, those are the sort of pushback mechanisms that may keep us more globally aware, which can be useful in an increasingly globalized environment, without being just panic-stricken nervous little dogs.